Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm a 26-year-old on a dual income budget, and every single time I get paid, I share exactly how I divvy up that money, how I think about my money, and what I do with it. So that's what we're doing in today's video. This pay period, we should be working with something around $4,500. I say something around because my boyfriend contributes the same amount, kind of like a salaried employee every single month, but I am an hourly employee, so my payments vary a little bit. And then we have some exciting things to consider for the month of October, including the fact that for me, it is a 3 paycheck month. So let's figure out exactly what I got paid and talk about it. I don't have a fancy system for this. I get a direct deposit and then I log into my banking app on my phone and I look at the direct deposit number. I was paid $1,995.31. Oh, you guys probably want to see this. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, there we go. That came in on October 3rd. October 3rd was a great day for me personally. We'll talk about a couple of the reasons why, but first I got paid. Second, hit a debt milestone. Third, new album. Fourth, it was a Friday. I had a great time. Anyways, Jake always contributes the same amount per paycheck. He contributes $5,000 a month to our living expenses. So we just always plug that in. Jake, if you are not familiar with him, is my partner whom I live with in this house right here. This is his grandmother's quilt. So we split our expenses kind of in a funky way because he owns the house. I have a lot of debt. The way we do our finances is a little niche, but I've included a lot of our shared finances here, or what would be considered shared finances in a regular dual income house. And then that's his portion of his income that he contributes to these shared finances. So it gives a picture of how we fund our lifestyle, I think, pretty well. So he just always contributes that amount. So we have a total of $4,495.31 that we can work with. The first thing that I always do is pay my debt, and I actually do this 2 days before I get paid because it usually takes about, or at least 2 days to post. And that way the money comes out of my account the same day I make money, and it feels like I never paid anything. And that is just a little hack if you're trying to aggressively pay off debt, but you do need to be strategic. There is a chance technically that it could pull earlier than that. I just have seen the patterns. I've been paying my debt for a year. So I try to make that payment on Wednesday after business hours, so it's not one of the days. And then it usually pulls at the same time that my bank account updates. And then my bank account still goes up, even though I made a huge debt payment. That's just a little psychological trick. But that is the first thing I do with any of my paychecks, is pay towards my debt, because right now that is my biggest financial goal. If you're not familiar, I borrowed 6 figures in student loans from the federal government to pay for my doctorate in occupational therapy. And then I also don't value debt, so paying off my debt aggressively was a goal before I even took the loans, and it's something that I'm acting out right now with a debt payment of $1,070 made last week. That's so fun. So fun. My student loans have a balance of $79,876.34. So we crossed the $80,000 milestone. It's fun crossing milestones. It's kind of been a while since I crossed one. And the fun thing is, my next milestone is when my debt is less than my gross annual income. It's about $76,000 a year. So I'll hit that milestone before the end of the year too, which is just fun because we'll just get a couple milestones back to back and it'll just add to the celebration of the end of the year. That $1,000 is what brought us past that mile marker, and we are securely in the 79,000. So it's fun to see that progress happen. Quick breakdown of my loans. I am currently doing the avalanche approach to debt payment, where I pay off the highest interest loan first, but I am making my minimum payments on all of my loans. My minimum payments have me scheduled to pay off my loans in 1 year. That's a lie. In 10 years. So they do tackle a bit of the principal. I'm not just covering the interest on each of these loans, which is nice because then the balance does go down. Very small amounts, but it is going down. So by the time I finish a loan and move on to the next, I have worked on a little bit of that balance through the process. But I'm paying off the highest interest one the most aggressively. My first payment every single month covers the minimum payments on all my loans, and then the next one goes straight to that higher interest loan. So going through loan by loan, on my first loan, I have $19,286. I don't remember the starting balances right off the top of my head, but I want to say this one was around $21,000. So as you can see, it hasn't been paid off that much in the past 16 months. Same thing with this one, $19,500, 5.28% interest. Third loan, $26,594, 6.28% interest. So this will be the one that I tackle next. This loan started at $30,500 plus interest. And then this loan started at $21,000. Don't take any of this to my grave. I'm fairly certain that this is true. The starting balances, at least, obviously the current balances are on the screen. And it has a balance of $14,493.91 with an interest rate of 6.54%. So it's 0.2% higher. Loan 3 is probably accruing more interest every month, but I am just sticking with the plan. This one will be paid off soon here, hopefully. And then we'll just keep chugging along at the next one. So, okay. So the way that I manage my money is with a zero-based strategy where I am giving every single dollar a job until I have $0 left to work for me. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm spending every single dollar. Sometimes I'm just assigning it. The biggest thing for me with budgeting and why I always like slacked off on a budget or didn't do it anymore was because I had a lot of variability. Some months I wouldn't spend anything and some months I would spend kind of a lot. And in those months where I spent a lot, I would blow my budget. I'd see the numbers go over and I would just be like, ugh, I'm a failure. I am not good at this. I can't do it. And so what I ended up doing is I created a budget where I use that zero-based system. And then if something is assigned a job and it doesn't get used for that job, then it just stays in that bucket. So if I say that something is for groceries, but I don't spend my whole grocery bucket in a month, then that money just lives in the grocery bucket. And then if I have a month where I do spend more on groceries, it's not an issue. I have money in the bucket. So I built out this mindset first, and then I built out an Excel template to match. And it's actually very simple, despite the fact that you're kind of looking at a lot here. These boxes over on the left side here, every single month, I do not touch them. This is just where all the data gets pulled and where I can see what's going on. I set up my targets for each category at the beginning of the year, and then all of this just pulls over into every single month. Those numbers are all just for me to reference and see whether or not I've given every single thing that needs a job, what I've spent in each category, and then what I have left over. You'll see a couple negative categories, and by the next time I film one of these videos, this will all be accurate. But I switched to a combined budget in the middle of the year, so a lot of my front half of the year is not in here. And then when we switched to a combined budget, I spent more money. I didn't spend more money, but we just happened to have like 2 back-to-back higher spend months, so it instantly sent me into the negative, even though the beginning half of the year was very low spend months. So we had a lot of money left in those buckets, if you will. That's just a clerical error. So I will fix it. I know that I've been saying that for a little while, but I actually have it planned now to fix it. But when you see those negatives, don't be like, oh my God, Sandra, you are so bad at your money, because that is not true. I'm actually pretty mediocre at this. So that is the context on how I budget my money. If that sounds like something that would work for you and you want to give it a try using my budget template, it is linked down below. Let's dive into assigning some money, and we're going to do that by going through the buckets. Now, like I said, I have $1,070 that has been sent to my debt. Honestly, my biggest priority after that for this month is my sinking funds and making sure those are all properly funded. So I'm going to go ahead and fund those. And part of the reason for that is because we have this travel this month and I want to be able to budget for that travel. So I want to see exactly how much I'm going to have in that bucket. Right now it says a negative 430. That's not true. Like I said, the beginning months don't show that I've contributed anything to travel and then we spent on hotels. There is money in my travel bucket when I look at it in my savings account, because I use an Ally bank account and they allow you to do buckets within your savings account. So I can easily like balance my checkbook here. I can look here and see how much money I should have according to my bucket. And then I can check my Ally bank account and see how much I have in a bucket. You know, I could just say savings, but I like to be able to kind of balance things in that way and have a check on myself and make sure I'm not giving two things a job. But I have $861 currently in my travel account, and then I want to fund that again this month so that I know exactly what I have to budget with while we're in Japan. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and fund my buckets. And then because I'm a very lazy gal, I go ahead and just copy it over from the previous month because I can. $1,100 is what we saved this month towards our sinking funds. Sinking funds in general are just things that we're saving for that we know we need to spend on throughout a year. So let's chat about what a few of ours are, because as you know, I have very aggressive financial goals for being young, but I still want to really fully live my life. So I created these sinking funds to help justify and help spread out those more expensive costs associated to living a very full life in my areas that I value. So one thing I value is travel. I save $100 a month. Jake saves $105 a month for travel. I like to ski. We get an annual ski pass, and that can be very pricey up front. We save $76 a month for a ski pass. And this is relatively inexpensive. We just get a ski pass to one mountain rather than one of the big conglomerates. I'm an icon girly at heart. I will get an icon pass one day when I'm not as poor, but this scratches the itch, lets us go skiing, all the things. We love having credit cards, we actually get a lot of value out of our credit cards, certainly more than the fees. And so we just save every single month to cover those credit card fees, because we do have a few that are just like $100, which isn't too bad in a month, but still kind of annoying. We also have a few that are closer to $500. So saving for those fees is helpful, because then there's just a bucket when they hit. And then all of those $500 cards we have, because the value that we get out of them is more than $500. For example, my favorite card is the Capital One Venture X card, and that one is like $400. You get a $300 travel credit, and then you get $100 worth in points. If you're not familiar with how points work, often you can get a lot more value than their cash out value. And then in addition to those perks, we get additional perks, TSA, pre-check, whatever. You pay for that once every 5 years. You get access to the lounge, which Denver has a Capital One lounge, and so we never pay for airport food or coffee when we go to the airport, which that alone can cost us $400 a year, because we do fly relatively frequently. And then we get 2 times, 3 times, 4 times points on certain purchase categories that we use to book flights for free. So the value is there in that card, and I have videos about using credit cards. It is one of our savings buckets, and I do get asked, like, that's a ridiculous thing to save for. I don't think so, because we get the value. But one thing that I look at when I am considering a new card is if I don't already use the perk, then it doesn't negate any of the cost of the card. So if I wasn't already traveling more than $300 worth a year, that means like booking hotels or booking flights, that's not a net zero for me. For example, like a lot of these cards have a DoorDash membership premium. I don't know what the perks of that are. And I don't know what the perks of that are because I don't use DoorDash. So that cost doesn't bring down the price of the card to me. One thing that I do value though is having a little bit of financial security and not having surprise things pop up. One thing that we have to pay for is getting our septic pumped biannually. We have an older septic. That's a Jake thing. So he knows when to do that. And I think we are a little bit conservative about it because there are some details there where we are trying to protect our septic. So we save to have that pumped so that when that cost happens, it's not like a huge hit. Meat, we are working on saving up to buy part of a cow. And then Jake likes to hunt and is going to teach me how to hunt. So to help process anything that we are able to harvest, if Mother Nature allows, we just save a little bit of money for that. But the biggest thing is that we are saving up to buy part of a cow. Tech is just one of those things you have to buy every so often. Clothing, my favorite category is our gear category. Whatever gear we need, there's a bucket saved for it. So that's good. And then car tires are just a huge cost that pops up and throws you off your rocker. You need to do every 4 or 5 years. So we save a little bit for it. So that's the overview of my sinking funds with way too much detail, but now you know. Let's see, where are we at? $2,086 assigned of our $4,495 income. That leaves us about $2,300 left to work with. I think we're gonna go ahead and assign all of our variable expense categories. Let's go ahead and assign these fixed expenses. I'm not gonna be lazy this time. I'm gonna just go ahead and assign them. It is not March 10th, it is October 10th. So we're gonna assign $1,000 for groceries. If you've been around, you know that we're not very good at spending $1,000 on groceries, but this month we should spend $1,000 on groceries because we're here for half the month. $150 on eating out. That's gonna get blown out of proportion, and it'll be interesting to see what we end up doing here. I think I'll track all of our eating out in Japan as eating out initially, and then I can go back through at the end of the month and change it to travel. But I think it'll be interesting to see what specifically is eating out while we're traveling versus what's like entertainment, those kinds of things. I think I'll track it all separately so that I can talk about the finances of travel and what we spent doing what in different places, and then go back through and like assign it all to travel. And then we're gonna assign $350 to our cars, $250 to household, $200 to Jake's spending. I didn't put enough lines. $200 for me to spend on whatever I wanted, and then $50 goes to subscriptions. So again, what I'm doing with assigning money is giving this all a job. I am just going through and saying, hey, this money is spoken for, and this is what it is spoken for. If for some reason we had a low income month, then I could go through and say, we don't have money for subscriptions. We have to cancel all of our subscriptions for next month, because I can see that there was no money to speak for that. Most likely we would cut a sinking fund category. But with that being said, we are left with a couple $100s to work with. And I think what I'm gonna do is just leave that money to deal with in the next video. I know that I'll assign it probably to something in here, if not invest it, but I just like finishing a box, you know? So I don't wanna assign $200 just to have to come back and finish the rest of the box when it's gonna be there. That is our $4,495 paycheck. paycheck for this month. It is the first of 3 this month, and I'm very excited to see where the rest of this money goes. Obviously, I have a sense of where it's gonna go, but especially with this being a 3 paycheck month and me not really having a total plan for that 3rd paycheck, which my recommendation is don't be like me. In the past and in the future, the best thing that I ever have done with my money to reach my financial goals is having a set plan for any and all income that is over whatever threshold. So for me, it would be the $2,000 that I budget with each paycheck, or $4,000 a month. If I made $4,001, I have that somewhere that I put 70% towards debt, 20% towards investments, and 10% towards whatever I want. And I might do that with this paycheck, but mentally I've been like, oh great, I can help fund and we can have a slightly more luxurious experience in Japan, and I can put an extra amount towards debt, in part because I am doing pretty well with my investments. Like, I'm pretty on par. I could invest more, but I'm like $200 one time. I don't know, but that's the wrong attitude. So I'll probably just end up doing that. But you should subscribe to see if I do or if I don't. How's that for a plan? This was a pleasure. Thanks for listening to me ramble about my finances. I love personal finance. I love sharing my personal finance with you. My goal here on this channel is to share what my life looks like as well as what I spend on it. So tag along for more budget updates, some Japan spending and fun vlogs. I don't know, whatever other shenanigans I get into. Oh, of course, paying off my debt. If you want to see that happen, then you're a very supportive and loving person. And I'll see you guys in the next video.